and welcome to another edition of Johnny Bill's Pharmacist World. I'm your host, Johnny Bill, and today I want to talk about something I think is really important, and it's also something very personal for me. It's about the Medicare Part D prescription plans and the cost of prescriptions to people that are on Medicare, which is the elderly and the disabled in our country. Yesterday, President Trump signed executive orders that will lower prescription drug costs in our country. Our country has the highest prescription drug costs in the world. And he mentioned in his press conference that he's going to cut out the middleman as one of the ways to do this. The middlemen he's talking about are the PBMs. PBMs stand for Pharmacy Benefit Managers. The Pharmacy Benefit Managers are CVS Caremark, Express Scripts, OptumRx, Humana, and MedImpact are the top five. And those top five companies last year had over $500 billion in revenues. And that huge amount of money is more than the top company in the Forbes Fortune 500, which is Walmart. So the first thing you have to appreciate is how much money these PBMs make in a year and have made over decades. It's astronomical, the amount of money that we're talking about here. So their huge profits, hundreds of billions of dollars, have been taken at the expense of our healthcare system and at the expense of patients, pharmacies, doctors, and the government. They've made money off of everybody, and they are extremely rich, and they've gotten too much money and too much power over many years, and the time has come to change that. And I applaud President Trump's actions. He's the first person to ever take on the PBMs and to ever do anything about our high prescription drug costs in this country, to which I say, bravo, President Trump. PBM really stands for profiteering by middlemen. One of the biggest moneymakers for them in the last 14 years has been the Medicare Part D prescription plan. There were 45 million people enrolled in the Part D prescription plans in 2019, and that's double from the first year in 2006. So we're talking about a lot of people and a lot of money, and the PBMs are making a killing on this rigged system in their favor. And I'm going to do this video today about how they've been doing it. These plans, they don't pay well in the first place. They don't really save people money in the first place. The copays are high, the premiums are high, the deductibles are high. They don't pay for anything expensive. They have formularies that says this is not covered and won't be covered, and they have a lot of red tape to get to try to cover things. And in the end, they rarely cover anything that's above $50 to $100. And so it's really of no benefit. It's like they're acting like they're doing something for the elderly, and they're really not. The elderly would probably be better off just getting their prescriptions from an independent pharmacy that has good prices and is not gouging you. But there is, in other words, you're really better off with no plan. But see, that's the first catch. When they wrote the law, there's a huge penalty if you don't sign up as a Medicare recipient. So law number one is you have to sign up. It's a rigged game. They make everybody do it. So rig number one is that. Rig number two is what's called the coverage gap, and that's the kicker, the big kicker. The coverage gap has been nicknamed the donut hole. The donut hole is a travesty, and it's one of the biggest reasons why Medicare doesn't care. Medicare Part D is the part of Medicare that pays for prescriptions for the elderly and the disabled. And it's been kind of set up against them from the start. It's been set up in favor of the PBMs, and over the years, this has increased dramatically. The losers in this game are the patient and the pharmacy and the payers of the claims, which are the insurance plans and the government. The manufacturers also lose big in this deal. The only winners of the situation are the PBMs, and it's huge. It's racketeering at its finest, folks. And it's one of the biggest reasons that our healthcare system is broken. It's one of the reasons why we have the highest drug costs in the country. And so, like I said, it needs to be stopped, and President Trump is trying to do that with these executive orders. This is a call for help that's been falling on deaf ears for years. And it's like Medicare's goal is to kill old people. People say, well, that's a radical thought. If you really look at it, it's true, because elderly people and their medical conditions are just looked at by the insurance industry and the people that pay for it as a cost. And if you eliminate the cost after you've taken their money, then it's time to move on to the next person to squeeze out all their money. And you reap profit after profit after profit of people after you've taken all their money. They're worthless to you and they're just a drag. So it's better off if they're not around anymore. What happens is you start paying money, and they pay so much on your prescriptions. If a prescription costs $900, which we'll see in a minute on mine, and I pay $45, and they pay the rest, they keep track of how much they pay in a running total. And that's called their troop balance, which is your out-of-pocket cost balance. And when that balance gets to approximately $3,000, you go into the coverage gap or the donut hole. Then they pay a highly reduced amount and nothing mostly. And then you have to pay $6,000 out of your pocket to come out the other side, and they start paying again. So the donut hole is a time when you go along and they're paying for your prescription. Then they don't pay for your prescription anymore until you fork out a bunch of money. Then they pay for it for a little bit more till the end of the year. Then everything resets and it starts all over again in January. And they play the same game over and over where they get rich and stick it to you. Sound familiar? Anyway, it's one of those things where the population is old and disabled, and there's no real benefit, and they just sticking it to you because there's 45 million people to make a huge profit off of. What happens is the PBM has to pay the government for each one of these drugs on a prescription by prescription basis. And so they turn around and charge the pharmacy a fee because they have to pay the government. And what happens is this fee is called a DIR fee. And DIR stands for direct indirect remuneration fee. And its definition by these PBMs is that DIR fee is a price concession in the form of a reverse rebate from the network to the plan. And quite frankly, that's ridiculous. And it is just a way of gouging the pharmacies and taking away their profits, which is rightfully theirs. And they're taking the profits of the pharmacy and putting it in their pockets. And they have for decades, and it's why they can make $500 billion in a year, and the pharmacies are all going under and are very unprofitable. That's the state of things today, right now, in 2020. And what happens is the more DIR fees that you get to charge the pharmacies, the richer you get. So the higher the cost of the drug, because all the fees are based on a percentage. If it's 30%, then if it's only $100 drug, you only make $30. But if it's $1,000 drug, you make $300. So as the cost of the drugs get higher and higher, you make more money. And that's why the system's rigged in their favor. So it behooves the PBMs to push Medicare patients into the donut hole and through the donut hole. And we're going to look at a chart in just a second, because their financial burden, the amount they have to pay out of that prescription, becomes a lot less in the donut hole and on the other side of the donut hole, which is called the catastrophic phase. And so what happens is they get relieved of their financial burden, means they pay a whole lot less, plus they make a rebate, plus they make fees, and they make the manufacturers pay for a big part of it during the donut hole. Then the government picks up the tab in the catastrophic phase while they're making money the whole time. So this whole system is absolutely rigged, and the DIR fees are part of it. DIR fees, the more of them, drives people into the donut hole. The more money that they pay, that they take away from the pharmacy, goes in their pocket. The more money that the patient has to pay is money that's not being taken out of their pocket. So more is going into their pocket, less is coming out of their pocket, and that keeps getting exponentially greater. And it has for decades. And now the time to start. Let's look at the chart. And if you look at the chart, the first phase is the initial phase. And you'll look at that on the chart, and you'll see the percentages during the initial phase. And then the second phase is the coverage gap, or the donut hole itself. And the third phase is the catastrophic phase. And look at the percentages on this chart that show what percentages are paid by who. And you'll see that that the percentages are higher being paid by the manufacturers and by the government in the donut hole and in the catastrophic phase. This chart shows what's going on with each prescription. So they also in 2020 increased the amount of the donut hole to get out of it from approximately $4,000 to $6,250. So they made the donut hole bigger just to stick it to people on Medicare. They also stick it to people on Medicare by not allowing any coupons or discounts on their copays. And there's a law that was passed that people on Medicare cannot get any discounts on their copays. So it's also rigged in the favor that they have to pay, and there's no way that they don't have to pay. The reason why it was increased is probably because Medicare is underfunded, and just like Social Security is, and they're worried about it going broke, which it's going to unless it gets refunded. So they're all the time, the government has to figure out ways to make Medicare pay for itself, and at the same time, the PBMs are getting filthy, stinking rich, and Medicare is insolvent. That's got to change too. The biggest thing that causes this is beyond everything we're talking about. Beyond these formulas and looking at a prescription, the PBMs make a 30 to 40% rebate that they get paid just to put a drug on their formulary by the manufacturers. So the first thing that's inflating our drug costs 30 to 40% is the rebate. And if you've looked at my other videos in the past, I preach this constantly. The rebate has got to go. And this is what President Trump is talking about in the press conference when he said a lot of rich people aren't going to be happy because, and he complimented Big Pharma. The big drug manufacturers are doing a good job inventing drugs, and the rest of the world has to pay for that, and we have to pay for that. And what happens is the PBMs reap huge profits by sticking it to Big Pharma in the form of a 30 to 40% rebate, and that's got to stop. So what we're going to do is I want to talk about a prescription I got last week. I'm diabetic, and I take insulin, and I take another medicine that helps my insulin keep my blood sugar under control, to keep my blood sugar low, which is critical for a diabetic. If you don't keep your blood sugar low, then you're going to die of the complications of diabetes, which among the top are heart attack and stroke. Your kidneys fail and you have to have dialysis, or you go blind. There's a lot of really bad things that happen when your sugar's not under control. So I have to take insulin, and I have to take Victoza, which is a drug called liraglutide. It helps lower my sugar, and it also helps prevent heart attacks. So if I stop taking Victoza, I've been on Victoza for almost 10 years. It's been out for about 10 years. And if you stop taking Victoza, you increase your chance of a heart attack dramatically. As a matter of fact, it's going to happen if you would stop it. So I can't stop my Victoza. I have to have it. There's no generic. There's no cheaper alternative. I've got to have the Victoza. So it's in 2017 also, there were 3 million prescriptions written for Victoza. Victoza costs the pharmacy approximately $900 a box. So if you did 3 million times $900, that's the money that the wholesaler's getting paid and the manufacturer's getting paid. And the rebate is based on 30% of 3 million times 1,000. Do the math. That's how much money they make per year, the PBM does, on just the rebate. And that inflates the amount of the cost. It's ridiculous that this is a box of 3 little pens that I inject in my belly, like you do insulin, and each pen lasts for 10 days. And so there's a 30-day supply is $900. The cost of the pharmacy is actually $926.73 on the prescription I filled. I got a 90-day supply last week, three boxes of Victoza, and the cost to the pharmacy that was submitted on the insurance claim to Medicare was $2,780.19. The total amount paid on the claim was $2,927.30. My copay, fully in the donut hole, which is 25%, was $731.82. I paid $732 for one prescription. Let that sink in a minute. The average wholesale price is $1161.43, and the pharmacy has a negotiated contract with my Medicare Part D plan that is AWP minus a certain percentage, typically 10 to 15% plus a dollar fee. And on the paid claim, they're not even paying that. So the second thing that happens with these PBMs, part of their profiteering, is that they don't pay the contractual rate that they have with the pharmacy, and the pharmacy can't prove it, and if they try to prove it, they cancel their contract and leave them out in the cold, and they go out of business. So they're evil, and their tactics, their business practices are evil against the pharmacies, and this is another good example of that. In January and February and March, I paid $45 per month for my Victoza. That was $135. In April, May, and June, I filled a 3-month supply. I was partially in the donut hole, and my copay was $424. And then I just filled a prescription, which is July, August, and September, fully in the donut hole for $732. This is one prescription that I gotta have. So the total copay, and if I fill it again in October, it's going to be approximately the $400 because I was partially in the donut hole and they prorate the copay. And so my total out-of-pocket costs on copays for my Victoza is about $1,700. And my yearly disability check is like about $32,000 a year. And my out-of-pocket drug costs with Medicare Part D because of the donut hole is about $6,000 a year. And that's about 20% of my income. And that's just medicines. And it's not counting doctor's visits, surgeries, hospital stays. I have a lung disease. I could get to where those medicines make it to where I can't live. And 20% of my income for Medicare Part D prescription copays is ridiculous. It's a travesty. It makes me angry. And guess what, America? There's 45 million people like me. So today's cry from Johnny Bill's Pharmacist World. And I also have an outdoor world and an indoor world and a Bible world and a family world. And my cry from Johnny Bill's Pharmacist World is, please, let's fix our broken healthcare system. Let's support President Trump. Let's fight the PBMs. It is high time that they quit making a killing. I worked at Family Pharmacy, an independent pharmacy, for many years. Our motto was, we make a living and not a killing. We've got to stop the profiteering by middlemen. Medicare doesn't care. So, let's review this for just a second, and let's see what the message really is here. We got a Medicare Part D claim. It's a $3,000 prescription. The patient pays 25%, which is $700. The manufacturer pays 70%, which is $2,100. The plan pays 5%, which is $150. The pharmacy made $200 on the computer screen, but no, there's a $300 DIR fee on this prescription, so the pharmacy actually loses $100. So if you step back and look at what's really going on with this prescription, the pharmacy loses $100. The patient pays $700. The PBM and the plan pays $50, but collects a $270 rebate and a $300 DIR fee. So they pay $50, but the PBM makes $570. So look at the roles of the people in this prescription. The patient, in this case me, is the reason the whole transaction is occurring in the first place, because I'm sick. So the whole reason this whole thing happened is because of the patient, and they pay $700. The pharmacy, who's the provider of the medical service here, who bears the burden of the inventory cost of purchasing something that's almost $3,000. Also counsels the patient, makes sure the prescription is filled accurately and properly, and does a vital job, loses $100. The manufacturer who invented the drug with innovation, invested a lot of risk in research and development, paid $2,400, and the PBM, which does absolutely nothing, which is not vital to this process at all, actually pays $50 and makes $570 on a $3,000 prescription. Is this fair? Is this right? Is this justified? Well, one thing that it is that this prescription is the truth. It's the truth about all brand name and some generics, Medicare Part D prescriptions that independent pharmacies fill every day. Independent pharmacies and every pharmacy chain except CVS Caremark takes a loss on all brand name Medicare Part D prescriptions, all of them, except for Caremark, who doesn't lose money because all the fees and all the stealing is going right back into the same pocket where it came from. So we have a lot of truth here. Is this fair? Is this justified? The answer, folks, is hell no. Back President Trump. I don't care if you don't like him or not. Put your hate in your pocket. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Congress, you promised us to get rid of DIR fees for the last couple of years. They've doubled. Okay? Let's get rid of DIR fees. Let's back the president and lower prescription drug costs in this country. We owe it to the people in America, the elderly, the disabled, and everyone else. Hey, America, listen up. Do the right thing. Cut out the middleman. And tell him you heard it here on Johnny Bill's Pharmacist World. Thank you, and God bless America.